In the middle of the show floor at IMTS, there's a booth with perfect lighting. LED arrays sync to motion, displays crisp enough to stop a distracted engineer mid-stroll. Most people just see marketing, but Jeremiah Llewellyn sees a system, not just in the tech, but in the way people move through it, where they stop, what they don't say, how the data hums beneath it all, waiting to be read like sheet music. He's a builder, but not the kind you picture. 8 years ago, he was wiring audio systems in restaurants, studying signal flow while everyone else watched the door. Before that, he was fixing monitors with 5-cent capacitors from Radio Shack. And before that, he couldn't speak clearly at all. Born deaf, catching up for years in speech therapy. He wasn't the loudest kid, but he paid attention. Music festivals, sneakers, motorsports, late nights, gaming, or tinkering with tech. He's always been drawn to rhythm, to feedback loops, to stuff that pulls you in and makes you feel something. Today, he's a marketing development specialist at Horn USA, but that title barely scratches the surface of who he is. Because what Jeremiah really does beneath the metrics and metal is build emotional infrastructure. He makes a booth breathe, makes a system sing. And when you've spent your life being misunderstood, making people feel something is more than a career. It's a kind of rebellion. Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm Jim Mayer, your host on your journey today. This show is all about the people of the industry. We explore the real, unpolished stories of manufacturing leaders, what shaped them, challenged them, and pulled them forward. And today, I get to sit down with someone I've not only followed online, but actually have spent time with in real life, Jeremiah Llewellyn. This conversation is also part of something bigger, the Lead the Change Tour. It's a nationwide leadership workshop series I'm hosting across the US, including a stop at Horn USA, where Jeremiah works. This tour isn't about digital transformation alone. It's about human transformation, culture, leadership, and the people reshaping the future of work. To learn more, head over to themfgconnector.com. Also, check out Work But Make It Human, or watch the Manufacturing Connector over on YouTube. Or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever else we are. Today's story is about what happens when you grow up creative, land in a technical world, and refuse to choose between the two. It's about wiring systems, breaking patterns, and building a kind of culture that doesn't neatly fit into a booth or a resume. Because if you want to understand where manufacturing is going next, you might need to start with the kid who is always a little offbeat. Jeremiah Llewellyn, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, Jim. Thanks for having me. I've been really excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've had to punt a couple times because either I was sick or traveling or something. You've been super patient, one of the most patient guests I've ever had. So I've got to thank you. For those people watching, listening, Jeremiah and I have actually been able to hang out a couple of times, which is a lot of fun. Most recently in your hometown, on your turf in Nashville. Man, what a cool town. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go by Horn. We'll do that, though, here coming up when you're hosting the Lead the Change Tour stop in Nashville at Horn USA. And I'm super pumped for that. I mean, I'm excited about all my tour stops, but I love Nashville with something special in me. There are a couple of cities in this country, Nashville, Austin, Charleston, New Orleans, places where you can walk down the street and hear a different kind of music coming out of each bar on that street.
Honestly, in Nashville, there's some bars that each floor has a different kind of music coming out of it.
There is, and that's wild to me. And I will say Nashville has changed a lot since I first went there almost 20 years ago. I was telling my wife it's a little bit more electronic in nature as far as the music is concerned than what it used to be, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's appealing to a different audience, and I don't want to sound like the grandpa that I could potentially be by saying that music's too loud or anything stupid like that. So excited to come back. I love that town. It's just the vibe is cool. The atmosphere is cool. You literally get off the plane and it feels You can feel it. It's palpable. The Nashville that's in the air. So
That's just
excited.
home to me, but I think I know the feeling you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's home to you. And
Yep.
you grew up there, right?
Yeah, I've been not necessarily Nashville, but Middle Tennessee, the surrounding cities. I've watched the metropolis sprawl to basically take pretty much the entire area of Middle Tennessee.
Yeah. Awesome. And we'll get into your story here in a minute. So, Jeremiah, I have a couple of icebreakers. You're the second guest that's hearing this one or answering this one. So, if your life was a movie, what kind of movie would it be? So, what genre? And then a follow up to that, what's the opening scene?
Okay, so immediately off the top of my head, without putting a ton of thought into it, I would have to say, like, for me, old school. For
Okay.
most other people, not really old school. Like the early noughties, like 2000, early
Yeah.
2000s, buddy comedy.
Okay.
Yep.
Like an old school or Wedding Crashers or something like
Yeah,
that?
not necessarily the same antics, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Is there one that you can say, okay, it would be like this?
We haven't shot the movie yet, Jim, so,
Well,
you know.
this is a start of it right here. This is our buddy flick right here, man. What's the opening scene?
Opening scene. You mentioned it, and I've talked about it recently on my social media. It would have to be something at a music festival, something going completely awry at a music festival.
Awesome. Awesome, man. And who plays you in this?
Who plays me? Honestly, I'm kind of a fan of those like indie sort of movies, so
Okay.
we would have to find somebody. It would be someone unknown.
I
There
like
would
it.
be a casting call.
I like it. I like that answer versus picking Leonardo DiCaprio or somebody like that, right? Like the fact that you would want somebody unknown to play you says a lot about you as a human being. So I appreciate that, Jeremiah. Thank you. So, man, this is a manufacturing culture podcast. We talk about culture. You're a big fan of culture. That's what drew us together at IMTS last year. When you hear the word culture, what is the first thing that comes to your head? And what is your definition of the word culture?
You know, you and I talked about this, and I have had months and months to come up with some eloquent explanation of what I see it as. And honestly, I haven't really quite been able to put it into words. But the first thing that comes to mind is both the things that when you wake up in the morning before you go to work, specifically talking about work culture, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you first wake up in the morning, the things that make you pumped to go and knock out the projects you've been working on, and also the things that make you dread Mondays a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. So let's get into your story. We're going to take a trip in a time machine here, my friend. We're going to go back in time to your youth. Okay.
Mhm.
And I want to know, what about you, the world around you, didn't understand about you when you were younger?
So, one of the biggest things I would say is that the world literally didn't understand me when I was younger. So, I'm not super well versed on it. You'd have to bring my mom on the podcast to have her explain it. But when I was born, I had some sort of condition where I had masses in my ears, like not cancerous, but like some sort of fatty tumors were in
Okay.
my ears, and they prevented the bones in my ears from properly developing
Wow.
initially. So I was born completely deaf. I couldn't
Wow.
hear until I was 1 year old, and that very, very seriously affected my speech ability and my development in speech. I was in speech therapy until I think it kind of died down about sixth grade, but I still kind of went, a couple times a year just to check up with the speech therapist up until like seventh grade or so.
Wow.
And quite literally people couldn't understand me. So when I was really, really young, early elementary school, stuff like that, I definitely struggled to make friends.
Okay.
I've always been a very social person, so
Sure.
those friends that I did make were very near and dear to me. But initially, that sort of social, I don't really even know how to word it, deprivation, if you will. That's not the best word, but it's the word that comes to mind. It really led me to spend a lot of time in my room, just on my computer
Yeah.
and just learning how stuff works. I had a computer from a really young age, a lot of people my age. I turned 30 next Saturday,
Happy birthday.
week and a day from today. So yeah, thank you. A lot of people my age, we've always kind of had technology. I'm
Hmm.
kind of like the first of the generations that always had technology, but a lot of people didn't have a computer in their home. Maybe they
Right.
didn't have internet until like fifth grade or so. I always had internet. I had ancient modems back in the day that made crazy noises. I talked to you about this. One of my earliest memories is sitting on my dad's lap talking to his best friend on a video call in probably 1990, maybe
Wow.
99, on the OG Logitech black and white webcam with the little like
Yeah.
pyramid base and the ball that sat on top
Love
of it.
those things. I love those
Yeah,
things.
so I spent a lot of time just tinkering with stuff, learning how stuff worked, and it kind of put me on a path.
That's awesome. And so, was there a moment that you realized that you see technology, you see the world differently than most people?
I would say the first moment that I kind of realized I looked at stuff differently was I think I was in probably fifth grade. Maybe it was like mid middle school actually, but had a computer monitor that was a hand me down. I got it for free. I never really had a lot of money growing up, so all my electronics they were at least two generations old and maybe
Wow.
cobbled together in some way. But I had this monitor, and for me, it was amazing. It was big. It was a flat screen. All my other monitors before then they were CRTs that
Yeah.
bowed the center of my desk down, and I love this monitor. And the monitor died. It
Mm.
just stopped working one day, and my mom was like, "Oh, it's okay. We can try and find you another monitor. Your birthday's coming up. We can get you a new monitor." And I said, "No, I think I can fix this one."
Wow.
I took it apart, and I looked at all the little components, and I saw a capacitor that was blown, and I said, "Hey, that's probably it right there." And we ran down to Radio Shack that day. I got myself a little 5-cent capacitor, and I fixed my
Wow.
computer monitor. And I was like, there might be a little something to this.
That's awesome, man. I
Yeah,
love that.
it blew my mom's mind. To me, it was like that's what you do. Your thing breaks, you try and figure out how to fix it, and you fix it. But to my mom, she was like, "That's so crazy to me. What kid would do that?" Which, looking back on it now, yeah, that what kid would do that?
What adult would do that? I
Yeah,
mean, we live in such a consumable society now that
exactly. Yeah,
a lot of people wouldn't take the time to look behind the curtain, so to speak, and figure out that it was a 5 cent part that blew the monitor out, even today, right? Just quick side note. Are you familiar with the Fix It clinics?
I think so.
So it's an organization. It's a community building organization. It started outside of San Francisco, and the whole concept is at libraries, at places like Horn, you can host these community fix-it clinics where people bring in toasters and vacuums and computer monitors and things of that nature that are broken. People like yourself who have that expertise to on how to fix it can teach them how to fix it and then fix it next time it happens, right? And it's like pass it on mentality of, hey, I'll teach you how to fix it this time, or I'll show you how, or we can fix it together type of a thing. And then next time you run into somebody who's got a similar issue, you can fix it. And it's just trying to build that community, but also tackle a little bit of that consumerism issue that we have going on.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard of that specific organization, but I have seen similar things. Like there's a 3D printing YouTuber that I watch from time to time that he'll just go out to the park. He's got a little cart that he has with his printer on it and a little mobile power station and solar and whatnot. And he just rolls it out in the park with a sign that says, "Bring me your stuff. Let me see if I can fix it." And,
That's cool.
be that a nozzle for a vacuum cleaner or something like that, or a mount for a computer chair wheel. Like,
That's cool. I
Yeah,
like that. I like that a lot. That sure beats the guy who mows lawns for free that I watch. Maybe I'll check that out.
don't get me wrong, I watched that guy too. I watch all of those guys. The Australian guy with the Free
Absolutely.
Mo Friday,
Yes.
love that guy.
It's just so satisfying,
Oh
man.
yeah.
I mean, as somebody who, yeah. Anyway, I could go on about
I used to
YouTubers I watch.
landscape too, so I also
Got it.
get a little bit of that satisfaction as well from it.
Absolutely. I bet. I bet. So tell us a little bit more about your journey, high school and into university, etc.
Yeah, so in high school, I actually had an incredible opportunity. Shout out to Laverne High School in Rutherford County, Tennessee. They have a fantastic computer program
Awesome.
where they will basically, by the time you graduate high school, you can have whatever industry certifications you want.
Ah,
You don't pay for it because the school runs a community focused computer repair shop that runs purely on donations and cost of parts, and they pay for certifications for the students. I was there as that program was getting developed. I was one of the first generations of students that got to experience that. It's a certified Pearson VUE testing center, and I helped
that's so
set that
cool.
up. I built the testing room. I helped get it certified and all that. So I all through high school, I was working with that program. I got my A plus certification my freshman year of high school, which for those unfamiliar, it's a CompTIA A plus. It's basically entry level Windows computer repair technician.
Okay.
And I had that out of high school. I had another buddy who really put his nose to the grindstone, and he had A plus, Network plus, Security plus, which those are the three that are required to work for the Department of Defense as like
Wow.
basically anything. He had that knocked out. He had Linux plus. He had all kinds of sysadmin certifications as a high school graduate. So I had exposure to a lot of that, and I didn't put my nose to the grindstone as much. So instead of having a million certifications straight out of high school and jumping straight into the job world, I went to college and ended up going to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. Go
Cool.
Raiders, True Blue. I went initially for computer engineering.
Okay.
And I very, very quickly found out that while calculus is incredibly fascinating to me and I like it and have a pretty decent grasp of it, I am simply not built for doing college calculus classes. And it was costing me a lot of money. So, I changed my major up and still stayed computer related. I got a business information systems degree.
Sure. Great
So
degree.
really, really strong background in business, economics, marketing, all that kinds of stuff. And then also supporting with data programming, like data analytics, all kinds of stuff like that. And that's kind of university there.
Wow. And so what about post university? How did you find manufacturing? Because you've
So,
got a career that has spanned so much, right? So how did you find manufacturing? Talk us through
yeah.
that part of your journey.
So it all blends together for me, but that you actually bring up a great point. Midway through college, COVID-19 pandemic.
Ah.
So that was very fun, to say the least. So while I was at home doing my online classes, trying my absolute hardest to not be the saddest person in the entire world, I was knocking out my classes, and my parents, they run a business doing audio video installation and for restaurants, retail, offices, whatever. And in 2020, my parents were doing horn actually.
Okay.
The building that we're in right now, they were running all the initial network stuff on the build out. We had just bought this building. Well, I say we, I wasn't with the company at the time. Horn had just bought the building, and basically my mom just one day, I had pretty much fresh graduated. It had been a few months, and they had been working on this for a few months. I had come out to help them a couple times, and I can't remember. It was probably October of 2020. I don't even know. I've lost track. Maybe 2021 even. My mom just came home one day from work, and I had been trying super hard to get a job. Job market was really, really tough at the time. I had put I forget my numbers now, but I was like religiously keeping track of how many applications, interviews, offers, whatever. I had applied at over 150 places, interviewed at like 4, and had
Wow.
0 offers. So I was having a
Wow.
tough go of it and was just working with my parents to kind of supplement the best I could. And one day my mom came home from work and she said, "Hey, you remember that place out in Franklin? Big old factory? Well, I think they might need like an IT guy to help out a little bit. You might want to send your resume in." So I did, and one
That's
thing
awesome.
led to another. I started here as kind of just like a liaison between the contractor that they were using at the time and just translating the geek speak to the decision makers more or less. And just my role has kind of rapidly evolved, and my degree has come into play in more ways than just the IT side. Now I'm working in the marketing department.
That's awesome. I love it, man. What's a lesson that you learned the hard way that you still use in your professional life every day?
So this could be really controversial to a lot of people, and excuse my minor language, but
Oh, we cuss all the time on this show.
yep,
Yeah, and this
but
is not meant for people who are younger than like 18. So
all
go for
right,
it.
cool. But I learned pretty much towards the end of my college career that if something is worth whole assing, it is also worth half assing.
Mm,
And that can be really controversial to people because a lot of people would be like, no, you have to put in 100% effort all the time. You
sure.
have to. Sometimes that's not feasible. Sometimes you don't have the bandwidth to do something.
Yeah.
But what is much, much, much better than procrastinating and doing nothing is putting in a little effort,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a generic example. You have bad teeth brushing habits.
Yeah.
You don't brush 2 times a day. You don't floss every day. Okay, you're not whole assing it, but you can
Right.
half ass it. You can brush once a day, floss every other day. That's way better for your health than not doing anything, you
Sure.
know?
Absolutely. Oh, I like it. It's a very relatable, simplistic example of that. I mean, I like it. Well done,
Yeah,
man.
like in college, it's something that I struggled with. And honestly, it's something I struggled with a lot through all of school. And in third grade, I had a pretty bad health scare. I had viral and bacterial meningitis at the same time. And I
Damn.
was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was conscious for maybe 3 days of that. I was in very, very rough shape. I didn't know until I was like 16 years old that I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was telling the story to my friends in front of my mom, and I was like, "Yeah, I was in the hospital the whole weekend." And she was like, no, you're in the hospital for 2 weeks. But what happened after that, I got back to school, and they plopped a big old pile of homework down in front of me, and they said, "All right, if you don't do this, you don't graduate, you don't pass third grade."
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, "That's stupid. You guys didn't even send me a get well soon card. So I'm not doing your homework." And something in my brain clicked, and it just made it very hard for me to do homework. And
Sure.
even going into college, it was something I struggled with, procrastinating homework. I would ace test, do great on projects, and then I'd get a C in the class, because I only turned in a third of the homework assignments.
Yep.
And that's something I had to learn. My
Yeah.
GPA was slipping. I needed to kind of kick it into gear, and that's one of the things that helped me was, but I can't sit here and stress about how this isn't the perfect paper
Right.
and not even right. What I can do is just start writing,
Yeah.
and whatever I come up with by the deadline, turn it in, because that's way better than a 0.
I totally agree, man. My wife and I come from opposite sides of the grade spectrum, I guess you can say, from our youth, but both have scars from it, right? I was like you. I didn't do homework in high school. I had other priorities that took precedent. But tests, papers, projects, I got A's on all of them, right? It was the menial day to day that I just didn't do. And so we tell our kids that we focus on effort, not the letters that come. And now they both are equating the letters to the effort that they put in. They are able, so it's just a different way of looking at it, right? But I like that example and I feel you, man. Let's talk about your professional life a little bit more. You build immersive experiences for people, right?
I
That's
try to.
something that you like to do. But you are also deep into systems, data, analytics. Is that a fair statement?
I'd say it's pretty fair.
Okay. So which one feels more like you and which one do people assume you are?
I would say, in a professional sense, when most people meet me, they would probably assume like the data side of it. Because I'm a nerd and I will sit there and nerd out and just info dump on people. The second someone shows an interest in something that I'm interested in, it's like, let's info dump on each other. So I think that they might get that impression. I think in my personal life, people would see a lot more of the creative side of stuff.
Okay. Cool. I love it. So if I walked into Horn and I didn't know you and I had zero context about who you are and just observed you for an hour, which is a really creepy way to phrase this question, so I apologize. But what would surprise me about you?
The sheer breadth of different things that I work on.
Okay, cool. Tell us about that.
So it could be anything from, let me preface by just saying our marketing team here at Horn is very small. We do a
Okay.
lot with very, very little. And that's something that that we kind of pride ourselves on
Heck
is
yeah.
that we're able to pull off really big things that a lot of people would shop out to some third party house that would make it happen for them. And, no hate on those people, but
Right.
it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when you do as many trade shows as we do, you just can't do that. We try to, not a lot of people know about Horn in the US, unfortunately, and we're
Right.
trying to stop that. And as a result, we have a presence at a lot of really small shows. You and I met at IMTS where we have this gigantic booth, one of the bigger ones at the whole show. But, we're also showing at probably 15, 20 other shows that year that have a 6-foot table, and that's it.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, so anything from making that stuff happen to working on graphic design and video production and making solid models of all of our different display units so that it can be easily manipulated around and we can test how the flow works and designing back-end systems and just all kinds of stuff. I'll be working on our internship program this summer, so like
Cool.
that's another thing. There's a lot that I work on, and even if it's outside of my job title, I really like a lot of the stuff that goes on around here. And if we need a little bit of a helping hand, like in our demo room, and we're going through the branding stages of it right now. We haven't really quite announced everything, but Horn Academy in there, anytime I can help out with, be that if they need a little fixture designed for a demo part that they're making, I'll do that for them and 3D print it and
That's
whatever,
awesome.
because we have the 3D printers in the marketing department, and just wear many hats and do lots of things.
I love that, man. That's so cool. You have passions, you have interests in a lot of different areas.
Mhm.
Music, gaming, motorsports.
Yeah, even outside of work, I still am a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. I dabble a little bit here and there in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but what do all those interests that you have in common, like under the surface? Is there a common thread between them all?
I would say really just that there are ways that I feel I can express myself
Okay.
without necessarily, like, don't get me wrong, I love putting myself out there and being vulnerable. It's something I've taught myself over the years to really appreciate. A way to put myself out there without showing too much of myself,
Yeah.
like I'm really into sneakers and I'll buy shoes not because they're hyping the culture, but because I appreciate the history behind it, or something about the materials or the design speaks to me on a personal level, and I attribute it to some positive memory or something like that.
Cool. I like that, man. And so, do you think that, I mean, we've talked about music festivals, but are you the same way with motorsports? I mean, I love F1, which isn't it didn't used to be the most popular
Yeah.
race mode here in the US, right? I think Netflix has changed that a little bit with the Drive to Survive show. But, gaming, motorsports, do you look for those things that resonate internally with you versus what is necessarily pop culture or popular or cool amongst your friends?
I mean, to an extent, I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I have a tendency to kind of be on the cutting edge of what is popular with
Cool.
my friends.
I dig that.
Like, as far as music goes, I'm one of those people that's sitting there scrolling through the YouTube rappers with 1,000 subscribers and 200 views on their video and sending it to my friends and stuff like that.
That's cool.
So yeah, definitely the stuff that resonates with me, but a lot of times what resonates with me does also tend to be relatively popular.
Cool. And I want to dive into that a whole lot because the 200 views type of rapper that you're talking about, that takes intention, right? That you are filtering, you're sorting, you're looking for that person that you're not going to hear on the radio, that may have, in the 2000s, may have been walking the streets of Nashville with a CD in their hand asking for donations in exchange. Is that the kind of stuff that you're looking for in life in general? I mean, are you searching for that unknown that does in turn resonate with you?
I would say yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's necessarily the exact wording that I would use, but as I said or kind of alluded to earlier, I have done a lot of work personally to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I really like to put myself in those situations where I'm in an unfamiliar situation and kind of under pressure or something like that.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
I
it.
don't know if that answers succinctly, but I would say so, yeah.
No, I get that completely. What is one belief, and maybe it's that half-assing and whole-assing comment, but what is the one belief that you hold about marketing that the rest of the manufacturing industry might push back on?
I pretty firmly believe that, especially in my specific niche within the manufacturing industry and the carbide cutting tools industry,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of focus on what the tool's capable of.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we can do like there's a lot of technical focus on it, which don't get me wrong, a lot of people want that in the marketing, but I don't really like where we're at now. Like a lot of stuff standardized, like it's gonna do a lot of the same stuff. I'm not necessarily speaking for Horn
Right.
makes fantastic tools that outperform everyone's, but there's this focus on the technicalities of it. But I think as a manufacturing company, and as Horn USA, a manufacturing company in the United States, it is very, very important to focus your marketing not necessarily only on your product. And the product is very important. Again,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. The product
Yep.
is super important. You can't forget about that. You have to market it. But I think that making your marketing appeal to those that are interested in working for you as a manufacturing company in the United States is very important, especially right now,
Yeah.
because there's so much tribal knowledge in the manufacturing space. So many people are so secretive about all of their processes, which understandable, we work with defense contractors and stuff like that. I get it.
Yeah.
There just is this tendency to just kind of lock in laser focus on product, when I think what we need to do as companies to ensure our future and ensure that that product continues to evolve and continues to improve and continues to maintain quality and continues to make new things, novel processes that haven't been done before, we need to market ourselves to those that are coming up in the industry. And we need to, that's personally for me, that's my focus, is marketing Horn as a company to the best people in this industry.
I love that. That's great, man. I like that a lot. And I completely agree that we need to focus on the people, right? The products are there, but to your point, it's spec at this point, right? And Horn does make great products. I sold Horn. You and I talked about this when we were in Nashville. Great products, but focusing on the people will be a differentiator for a lot of companies. So I love that answer. Jeremiah, we're Gen Z, right? You're not even 30 yet.
So I am technically, very, very technically a millennial.
Are you really?
I was born in 1995, which to my
Okay.
understanding is the last year of millennials.
You are, yeah.
But as a result of that, and that kind of goes back to like I had internet very early. I had unsupervised internet access as a 4-year-old. In the year 1999, I was on the internet as a 4-year-old. But I very much so culturally tend to identify more with Zoomers and Gen Z.
Yeah. So as late millennial, early Gen Z, we'll call you a zillennial. What is your view of the future of manufacturing? What do we have in store?
I think that the wheels are turning and the momentum is being made with a lot of our friends, mutual connections in this industry, and I think that a lot more young people are on the way. I won't lie, the market's looking pretty grim right now.
Yeah.
But with a lot of the stuff that a lot of the people that I really admire in this industry are working on, I see that the wheels turning and the momentum being made, and it's a train that's not going to be able to be stopped once it gets going. And I think that we're going to have quite a few younger generations and younger people with fresh ideas coming in and changing stuff up pretty heavily in the coming years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be up to, I'm Gen X. I am the other side of the millennial generation. I am 79, so I am the last year of Gen X. So I am the Zennial with an X, not with a Z. You're a Zennial with a Z, not an X. And I think it's going to be important and imperative that people of Gen X, older millennials to an extent, we need to get out of the way. We as a generation, we are the smallest population generation, Gen X. When you look at the baby boomers, you look at millennials, you look at Gen Z, right? The Gen X is the smallest population count wise. And because of that, and because of market conditions in our lives, we've seen the people older than us in the world of work have to work longer just to be able to retire. And because of that, that's made us not as ambitious as a generation. We haven't moved for leadership roles because we've seen these older folks sticking around the world of work, right? So we haven't necessarily developed a lot of the skill set that it's going to take to lead industries like manufacturing into that next stage. So it's going to take us being in the industry. But I look at the ideas like you were talking about that your generation and people around us have or are coming up with. And I think we need to step aside to a certain extent. What do you think about that statement?
So I think that step aside sounds a little bit harsh, but
It
I
does.
would I would tend to agree. It's definitely getting to the point where your generation is better suited as a mentor, supportive role, and to start building up my generation to step into those leadership roles.
Yeah.
But also, I would say my generation and Generation Alpha that's coming into the workforce now, I would say it's important to be a leader even if your job title doesn't say that you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody directly reports to me, but I definitely try to live my work life like a leader. I try to take ownership, take agency of the things I work on. I try to And even though I don't have anyone that directly reports to me in the industry as a whole, I try to lead how I would want the industry to be. Like if you go on my LinkedIn, my personal LinkedIn, I don't talk about the industry a lot. I post about playing RuneScape and music festivals and stupid stuff, And
But that's you. That's
yeah,
authentically you.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
that's the whole thing, and that's what I love about that younger millennial, that older Gen Z is the authenticity that often comes from people. Anyway, I could go on about generations. Jeremiah, we're wrapping up here. What haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience today?
You didn't directly ask me about it, but I kind of alluded to it. Well, I didn't allude to it, I flat out said it. But I'd like to talk about it just a little bit more. The summer internship program that we're doing here at Horn. I'm
Cool. Let's hear it.
super excited about that. It's going to be our first time doing it. You and I spoke. I know that you're a little bit more familiar with how the education system works over in Germany and their apprenticeships and all of that. And we're kind of not directly, because that's very hard to do as a first run through, but we're kind of trying to model it after a lot of how that works over there, with businesses kind of doing work training with kids, as young as like 14. It starts over there. But this internship program that we're doing, it's a local high school, and the kids it will be the summer between their junior and senior years. They are dual enrolled with a local community college in a mechatronics engineering associate's program.
Very cool.
By the time they graduate high school, they will have that degree at no cost to them because of the Tennessee Promise here in Tennessee. And it's just incredibly exciting to me. And
I love
it's
that.
something that I'm going to be kind of spearheading. And I really look forward to sharing that journey with, everybody else on my social media and future podcast appearances. And it's just something I'm super excited about. So I just wanted to speak on it for a second and say keep an eye out for it.
I love it. So when I'm there at Horn on August 27th, will those summer interns already be back at school? Will that
Yes,
program be
they
over?
will have gone through the program.
Okay, let's do a live when I'm there in August. I'd love to have a follow-up to this conversation, just quick LinkedIn
Yeah.
live or something like that
Yeah, for
at
sure.
the workshop. And I want you to tell everybody who listens to this show what that ended up looking like and
Yeah.
the impact that it had on the community and all of those things. I'd love to have that quick follow-up.
Yeah, and not to shout out another podcast, but she's a friend of the show, so I'm sure you won't mind. Midway through that internship, I should be recording with Ann Wyatt for her podcast, where I'll be
Awesome.
kind of talking about midway through how I'm feeling about it.
That's awesome. Ann is phenomenal. If anybody hasn't heard of Ann Wyatt, please find her on LinkedIn, listen to her podcast, not just because Jeremiah is going to be on it, but because she's got some great guests on there and it's a wonderfully done show. So I'm glad you're going to be on that one as well, man. You're kind of making a tour this year, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
I like it. I like it. Jeremiah, thank you so much for being on today, man. This has been
for sure.
a really fun
Always
conversation.
great chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love this show because I get to know people at a different level than I mean, I might have known about, the masses when you were born, but I don't know if if it resonated, and today it did, right? Because to me, I immediately started thinking about your love for music, your love of things, and how did that potentially shape those loves, right?
Yeah.
Into
And
who you
honestly,
are
I
today.
didn't really think about it until you asked me about it.
Awesome, man. Love it. Well, Jeremiah, thank you again. Appreciate you being on. And folks, if you, again, haven't connected with Jeremiah, find him on LinkedIn. He does post a lot of LinkedIn content, I guess is the best way to put it. But he puts a lot of value out there into a sphere that is sometimes just an echo chamber of people talking back and forth. And so great human being, great friend of the show. Jeremiah, really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Wow. Jeremiah said something that I've been thinking about since we wrapped. If something is worth whole assing, it's also worth half assing or something to that nature. At first, it sounds like a joke, but listen again. What he's really saying is it's better to show up imperfectly than to not show up at all. Better to move the work forward, one flawed human inch at a time, than to stall out waiting for perfection. And that might be one of the most honest things that anyone said about work in a long time. In an industry obsessed with specs, tolerances, and getting it right the first time, Jeremiah reminds us that growth is rarely clean. That culture isn't built by flawless leaders. It's built by people who try, who care, and who keep showing up with what they've got. Jeremiah, again, thank you for your story, your rhythm, and your refusal to fit in neatly. What you're building at Horn and what you're helping us build across this industry, it really matters. And speaking of building something, this conversation, again, is part of the Lead the Change Tour. We're not hosting leadership workshops. We're creating spaces where new voices can be heard and where culture is something we shape on purpose, not inherit by accident. You can learn more about the tour and everything else we're working on over at themfgconnector.com. You can follow along on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and check out our other work, our other shows, Work But Make It Human, which is a show about leadership, empathy, and the future of work, or the Manufacturing Connector over on YouTube, where we tell some of the stories of the technology that's facing the human experience in manufacturing. If today's episode left you thinking, I'm so happy it did. Please, please, please share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your grandma, anyone else who you think would love Jeremiah's story. While you're at it, please rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening to it on today. And then let the episode sit with you a while. Ask yourself what systems you've been quietly building and what kind of rhythm you want to leave behind. Until next time, thanks for listening.